So let's do the, all right, I'm going to go ahead and hit record. Record is on, and I know because the numbers are going up. I check now. Okay, so whenever you're ready, go ahead and go for take one of your promo dealio thing.
Hey, everybody, this is Canadian musician Ed Roman. You're listening to Jeff Smith on Vroom Vroom Veer podcast, and don't you forget it.
I'm going to have to say, best vroom vroom sound ever.
I think do the beep, beep,
yeah.
beep.
Thank you, Ed. That was awesome. I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Peisner and Marc Berkman, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer, and welcome to the show. How's it going?
Good, Jeff. How are you?
Great, great. Weather's awesome, and I just got my electric bill from NV Energy. I have solar panels. It's like the best day of the month. So you guys started the Organization for Social Media Safety, and your website is ofsms.org. Whoosh. Okay.
Correct.
So tell us, are you guys most excited about over there at your organization? And you can go one at a time or all together. I don't care.
Sure. So this is Marc. So let me give a brief interview of who we are, what we do.
Sure.
So we
Perfect.
are the first and only, to our knowledge, consumer protection organization focused exclusively on social media.
Right.
So we protect against all social media related dangers, from cyberbullying to
There are many.
I could go for 20 minutes. Cyberbullying, hate speech, trafficking, etc.
Right.
So we do that. We take a comprehensive approach to protecting your family from these dangers. We do that through education. So Ed is in schools across the country pre-pandemic and hopefully soon post-pandemic,
right.
Teaching social media safety skills. We do advocacy work. So we work on legislation at all levels of government to enhance social media safety. And we do technology development work. So we work on software and apps that provide real-time protection against any and all social media related dangers. So
awesome.
In terms of...
I want to talk more about that. Remind me.
Absolutely. Okay. So in terms of what we're most excited about at the moment, we released recently a free virtual course for parents. This is us pivoting during the pandemic. So parents can go onto our website, which you mentioned, ofsms.org, and check out our free course called the Buckling the Social Media Seatbelt course. Learn everything they need to do to keep their children safe on social media. It's really kind of a one-of-a-kind product that we were concerned was not otherwise out there, so we made it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and Ed, I'm going to give you a chance to say whatever you're excited about too, because,
Sure.
Hey, there's two of you guys. But I just wanted to say, I was awesome. I was really excited to get the offer to have you guys on my show, because you are a social media safety has got to be my number 2 priority in my life, as far as things I think are important for the planet, right? Climate is probably number 1. This is a strong number 2. And then there's a lot of other stuff going on, but oh my God, it's crazy. So, Ed, what are you most excited about in your organization today?
Well, I'm going to start by the way, it's Ed Peisner. Thank you. I'll start this way. I'll start by telling you why we founded this organization.
Perfect.
And I'm most excited about everything we're doing. So it's not just one thing, it's
Right.
all of it.
That's great.
That said, let me just give you my backstory. Mark told you about the organization and what we're about and how we're working.
Right.
And I'll give you why we started it, or why at least the ignition point. So 4 years ago, my son Jordan at the time was 14 and a half years old. And he was walking home from school. He had just started ninth grade, middle semester of ninth grade. And he was walking home from school.
And this is in the West Valley area, or
in
West
the West
Hills?
Valley. Yeah, West Hills and West Valley
Southern
area
California.
of
Right.
Southern California, correct.
Right.
And he was walking home. He had called me and said he was going to stop at a local fast food restaurant just to grab some fries with his friends and then, make his way home.
Okay.
And of course I said, sure, fine, no problem. And I don't know, about 20 minutes or so after he had called me, I got a phone call that someone punched Jordan. That's all they said. They said, Mr. Peisner, somebody punched Jordan.
Is
We're
this the
down here.
police?
No, this is one of his friends.
Oh, okay.
So we're down here at the restaurant. You need to come down here. I really honestly thought nothing of it. I grabbed an ice pack. I thought maybe he had a bloody nose and,
Right.
I'll just go down there and pick
Kids
up my
being
son.
kids, maybe?
Maybe. I didn't know. So I just drove down there. I left my 12-year-old at home, my daughter, and said, I'll be back. And when I got there, I drove upon a scene out of a movie or a TV show. There was a fire truck, an ambulance, a police car, a horde of kids. And I knew obviously that I got the chill down my spine. Something was happening.
Wow.
And I ran to the ambulance. I go in the back of the ambulance. My son's lying on a gurney. He's just covered in blood.
So he was more than just punched.
He was punched once.
He was punched
once.
Wow.
Yeah. And, I just looked at the paramedic and said, I don't understand what's going on. They said, somebody punched your son, but he's got a brain bleed. He's got a hematoma inside.
God.
And blood's coming out of his ear, and we need to rush him to the hospital. And I said, go. And I jumped off the ambulance, and all these kids were around. So I asked the kids, what happened? I don't get, someone tell me what happened. And they come up to me with their smartphones in hand, and they said, oh, look. And they pull up their smartphone, and they start showing me a video of my son talking to a friend of his, and then this guy walking up behind him and just with all his might swinging and knocking my son to the ground, and then the guy walking away. And I was dumbfounded. I honestly, I'm speechless. I didn't know, why am I looking at this? I don't understand what I'm looking at.
Yeah. I'm confused too. So were they shooting the video already?
Yeah. They, someone filmed, they were aware that this was going to happen, and the camera came out. They filmed the assault. The guy walked away. And then when Jordan's lying on the ground, more kids are running over, taking pictures, because everybody's got to grab the picture and get the picture of all the blood and this and that.
Wow.
So short story
insane.
Jordan was driven to the local hospital. The injury was too severe. They couldn't treat a brain trauma. So they airlifted him to Children's Hospital, Los Angeles. He spent 6 days at that hospital between the ICU and the standard rooms. And he had this hematoma, this brain bleed. And we heard things like brain surgery, drilling holes, death, everything you could imagine, and anything as a parent you never want to hear. Just things you never want to hear.
No.
So after 6 days, Jordan getting out of the hospital, he was in there for 6. We got home. We tried to adjust to the new normal, and I wanted to turn my mess into a message, and didn't know where to begin.
Okay.
So I contacted my local assembly member here in the Valley, where I live, and reached out to see what could we do. I don't know what, but I have to do something. And the chief of staff at the time that I reached out to that assembly member, the chief of staff in the office was Marc Berkman. So that's how Mark and that's where the connection was made.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the veer. And, when Mark and I began talking, believe it or not, Mark had seen the video.
Wow.
Within a few hours of it happening, to talk about that viral nature of something. Mark had already seen it.
Wow.
So we knew something needed to be done. And so to answer your question all the way back in the beginning, what am I, excited for? But everything we've done since that moment
Do you mind if I pull that apart a little bit? I mean, was there an investigation? I mean, like
it was a matter between minors, so I'm not allowed to speak to any of that. Was there a police investigation? Yes.
Okay.
There was, but I really can't go into any of the details about that.
That's fine. No, don't say anything you can't say. That's not what I meant. But what I wanted to know is there's a story that like there was a plan, right? You said there was a plan to get this video and to make it go viral, right?
What we discovered and what we uncovered during the founding of this and with Marc's help and as we were just like working on everything is that this, what we're calling today social media motivated violence, these attacks committed just for notoriety, just to get hits. Yeah. To get hits and likes, if you will.
It's insane.
They were just happening exponentially, just growing and growing and growing. And we knew, Marc and I knew.
So this was just like your introduction to this insanity, essentially.
Of course. Yeah.
Wow.
Before this, I had, I knew what social media was. Like we all knew what social media was, but it never to this extent. And the viral nature of things. And again, when I go to schools, I always talk about this and I say, people looked at this video of my son and they clicked the like button. Just pause on that. Yeah. They like it.
Yeah, they like it.
And that, that psychology to me, there's something wrong.
Totally.
It's and it's in the hands of kids today. So we need to make sure they're safe.
Thanks for sharing your story. I know you do it often, but it's got to be hard to relive every time.
Does not get any easier.
No.
Every time I get chills. And,
to make us feel better, how is Jordan? Is he...
Jordan, so my answer to that question is he's different than he was. In fact, it's very funny today.
He's probably got PTSD or something.
He does. And he's just his personality changed.
Right. Right.
He was this budding drama student, very vivacious and, had a lot of energy and charismatic. And there was always this twinkle and this light with him. And he's different today.
Right.
Again, PTSD is very hard to handle. It's a real thing. And it really changed his behavior and how he sees people. Friends that posted things and that he it
changes everything. It changes everything.
Yeah.
I
get to hug him every day.
Yes, that's a veer, and he can get better. He's going to need a lot of help. He's going to
Yep.
I had a friend who came back from a deployment when I was active duty Air Force, and he has not so bad, but he does have PTSD. And it manifested for him in really funny stories that aren't funny, but hilarious outside the context of him just raging, right? So like when he tells the story, I'm laughing my ass off because he's my buddy. But then I step back and I'm like, well, that's not really funny. He did get help. He went through the VA, and the VA, to their credit, is now, helping veterans with PTSD. It's a real deal. So
it's a real thing.
Deal.
Yeah. It's not to be. Yeah.
So Marc, tell us what was all of this? So you saw the video before you talked to Ed.
Yes.
Yeah. Talk us through that story. What was that day like for you?
The video came in, I want to say 2 to 3 hours after the attack. It was on the news. I believe the same night. It was on the news. So the incident had gotten around the community that my assembly member covered. Okay. And it was obviously, video's horrifying, but there was immediately, I think on my part, a part of other people in our office, that this was a far bigger issue. This wasn't an isolated incident. And so we started researching it, and it became very clear what we actually did. I had staff kind of graph out these, what we now call social media motivated violence, these attacks committed as Ed said, attacks committed for the purpose of sharing and getting likes and views. And so you really can go back to the birth of major social media in 2006 with Facebook and see about 4 incidents of what was then called the knockout game, where kids were walking up behind people and trying to knock them out and getting that on camera and putting it on to Facebook. And from there, we saw exponential growth year on year to the point of 2016 and 2017 when this happened, hundreds of thousands of videos viewed by literally millions, mostly young people. And so, it was horrifying to see. And a lot of these videos are just really, really graphic, gratuitous violence. And it was clearly becoming normalized among our youth. And so what we did was I ended up writing legislation that came to be known as Jordan's Law, which we passed in less than a year, which is the first piece of legislation in our country that deters social media motivated violence specifically.
We need more of those.
Working on it.
I get it. That's your gig now, but
yeah.
I've been saying that. So there's other people in your space, sort of. I can't remember the dude's name, but if I have a chance, I'll check. But I've been kind of like paying attention to this space for a couple of years. So yeah, I mean, I think his it's not like a safety thing on the other side. So this is the first time I've come at it from the point of view of there's been a crime, and then you're talking directly about safety, right? My mind was all about the sort of like brainwashing kind of feel that you get, which is, equally bad, but, not as in your face, I guess, right? So when I saw this is going on, I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, you guys are talking about election interference, harassment, hate speech, all that other stuff, addiction. There's definitely all kinds of, I guess, harm is the best word, harm that's being done by every user of social media.
Lots of dangers
we call them social media related dangers.
Right.
Dangers
Perfect.
that pass through social media.
Right.
We're able to cover this whole group of dangers.
It's like a spectrum. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So we're able to cover them because our expertise is on social media and learning how these dangers live and thrive in this world. So you have disparate dangers from cyberbullying to election interference. But they're operating in this world of social media, and a lot of the dynamics are the same between various dangers.
It's crazy.
It is crazy, and we still have emerging dangers. So, Dr. Laura Berman, who is a nationally known therapist who was on Oprah and the OWN network, tragically, her son was home. Her 16-year-old son was home, like a lot of all of us during the pandemic, and he was on Snapchat, and he ordered Xanax through Snapchat, which is what a lot of kids had been doing before, but even more during the pandemic. And turns out that the dealer had laced that Xanax with fentanyl, and he tragically passed away.
Wow.
But very recent.
This was mid-February. Yeah. So, and that's an example of these dangers that continue to emerge and evolve through or exacerbated by social media.
Wow. This is like, is Jordan's Law, is that the first law like in the whole nation that is talking about social media safety?
It's the first law focused on social media motivated violence.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's certainly laws that would impact social media safety, be that
privacy stuff, right?
Privacy, data collection. I mean, there's a lot of groupings of various laws that are protecting people on social media.
Right.
There certainly needs to be more and more focus on it, but there are laws out there, even laws predating social media that are obviously going to protect people, like child pornography laws and other pieces like that. But yeah, we're working on more.
Yeah, I was going to say
in a reasonable way.
It's going to take a while, just because, I guess it's probably because of so many things, but Facebook makes a lot of money, right? And unfortunately, when there's an industry involved, then government is, it's going to take a long time. I worked in government. I was in the Air Force 20 years. I still work for the government. The government moves slow. I mean, you worked for the government.
The government moves slow, but we move fast. So
you do? Good.
We are the look. Facebook has move fast and break things, and we want to move fast and fix things.
Okay.
That's
good.
Each day that we wait to get stuff up and working is a day that another family is getting injured by some of these dangers. So we're certainly trying to work quickly, not just in the advocacy field, but again, it's the three programmatic divisions that we have that work together: the education, the advocacy, and the tech. So we're actively working on legislation right now, both in the federal government and the state of California.
Perfect.
And so we're trying. And I've done this through my whole career pre this nonprofit. While I was in government and in DC, it's finding small targeted pieces of legislation that are very effective. Instead of a big 100-page, 200-page bill, what can we get passed now that's going to help increase safety?
I like that. That's a good approach, I think, because I think I've heard other approaches where it's like, well, can we talk to, the companies themselves and see if they'll police themselves? Probably not.
I mean, we talk to the companies. We have an open line of communication to a lot of them.
They have to be open to these discussions. Okay, Ed, go ahead.
They're perfectly friendly on the phone. They're happy to share information.
Right.
Again, we don't take money from any of these platforms. We are a consumer protection organization. Like I said, we're the only one out there. So our job is to call them out when they are not conforming to a behavior or a practice that we think they should be following.
Right.
And so that's our job. And we say that to them. We leave that option open. We take that option sometimes.
Right.
And sometimes we take it to the max by legislating against their wishes.
Sure.
So that's what we do. And I think that's why a big reason why Ed and I took this journey, because there was no one out there specifically doing that, and there needs to be an organization that is watching what they do and calling them out on it.
Eventually, when
it's wrong,
in a perfect world in the future, right? There should be a regulatory agency doing this, I think.
There are regulatory agencies that will cover a variety of practices and issues. It can
tricky. Also be in like other levels of government too. It could be state level or even local level. But
sure,
yeah,
absolutely.
It would be easier at a lower level, right?
It is very tricky, I'll say, because we are dealing with speech here. So you can regulate.
Okay.
And a lot of people talk about this concept of turning social media into a public utility. It is tricky, again, because we're not dealing with a commodity like energy or television being zapped into your house. We're dealing mostly with speech, and these dangers are coming about because of and through speech. So there is a high degree of complexity in how to regulate it and how to make this safer.
It's hard to write. It's almost like you're innovating laws. You have to create new language. And a lot of people don't even understand what an algorithm is, right? So like my first take was that the algorithm itself is good at making money, so they don't want to change it too much, right? That's their sort of like their excuse. Well, you can't take away our existence, right? But that whole algorithm, it's baked into that algorithm that it doesn't really morally or ethically judge content. Content is content, and it's good, i.e. if it gets a lot of likes and interactions, right? So that baked in algorithm is inherently needs ethical boundaries and moral boundaries and legal boundaries. And that can be done. It can be done in code, it needs to be done in code, right? So Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. You could still make money without allowing these other things to happen. That's all I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Of course.
Right.
And the social media companies would respond that, there's a capacity to most of this is content moderation, right? So there's a capacity, they would say, to what they could moderate. There is a limit to what their artificial intelligence filters can pick up. Mm-hmm. So there are certainly real challenges that they face in mitigating some of these dangers that we would acknowledge.
Right. I get that. Yeah, that makes sense. So Ed, talk a little bit about what your role is. You're going out to schools, or you were. So talk a little bit about pre-pandemic, what you were doing out in schools and giving speeches and stuff.
Yeah, pre-pandemic, we were visiting schools all across the country. My schedule was booked, and I'd give a full day presentation to the students. Be it 1 hour or 6 hours, or whatever it took to talk to all the kids in all the classes. This is from 5th grade to high school up to 12th grade. And in the evenings, I would usually do about a 90-minute, hour and 15, hour and 30-minute presentation to the parents. Our educational piece is great because it obviously begins with Jordan's story.
Right.
And once that starts, the kids, it's silence.
Sure.
They all are listening.
Right.
And I really do I don't get up on a podium. I don't get behind a podium up on the stage in a suit and tie. I'm walking around the audience, looking at the kids, connecting with them, just sharing a story. Right. And I tell them, I'm not here to badmouth social media or take your phones away or make you, I'm the guy that's going to turn off social media. That is not the goal here.
Right.
It's to make sure that they're safe, because I know it's very important to them, and it's never going to go away. And I share my story. I share tips with them. I let them know that there are some laws out there that they need to be aware of. And, unlike when we were kids and we had the DARE program for drugs or the Red Asphalt program for drunk driving, where they were scaring us not to do things, we knew the things that they were scaring us to not do. We knew those dangers. We knew drunk driving. We knew drugs were bad. Today, my job is to educate the kids and the parents about what the dangers are. Because a lot of these people, kids and children alike, kids and parents alike, they don't know what the dangers are.
Right.
So I want to educate them on what they are and then give them tools how to react should and when one of those dangers appear. So that's really my piece on the education. I go out, I connect with the kids, I talk to the parents afterwards. And I've been at schools where kids have come up to me after my presentation to the kids, and they've said, "This is amazing. I'm going to go home today and make sure my parents come back and attend." And that to me
means you've won. Yeah. Message received.
Exactly. And that's the goal.
I get it.
That's the goal.
Right.
So, that's the piece. We've spoken to tens of thousands of kids in schools, and, I'm hoping we're back in school this fall and we can get back to visiting schools and talking to kids and keeping them safe.
So have you guys been doing any Zoom calls during pandemic? Not so much. That would be hard.
Yeah.
No, we don't present to students during the pandemic, but we have done.
I know you got that online class for parents, right?
We have the online class for parents, and then we do a parent workshop pre-pandemic before schools. But we've been doing that virtually for a number of school communities.
Okay.
Or a lot of school communities, because there's a big interest. So we're going to open up virtually to students probably in May as well, because there is a lot of school interest, and these dangers are exploding as well. So cyberbullying, one study shows, is up 70% during the pandemic. So the help and the need for the help is,
I guess that makes sense, because the kids are online more, right? So
the kids are on
all day on Zoom. Right, or some sort of flavor of Zoom, right?
The kids are online more. Also, and again, we're
screen time is what they say.
Exactly. Yes, but we're in a bit of a kind of black hole in terms of evidence and statistics, right? But presumably, we're going to see a lag in social development among this whole generation. So they've now spent a year plus, year and a half, isolated, and they're just and online a lot. Right. And now they're going back slowly. And so presumably cyberbullying, which, if you're delayed in communication skills and social skills, it's going to increase, along with hate speech and sexual harassment and sexting. Right. All of the issues that we cover. So there's a huge need right now that people are aware of. It's not a secret.
So talk a little bit about like countermeasures. Like when you say, okay, here's a danger, right? What are the countermeasures that you guys advocate and train for? It
depends on the danger. Okay. It depends on the danger we're talking about, but and one of the reasons we are so excited about this course that we have online, and of course what we teach in person to parents as well, is that the dangers, when we're talking about dangers that impact families and tweens and teens particularly, what we did was we developed a system for parents, and we want parents to think about safety as a system. Okay. Before us, it was like hunting and pecking on the internet for a tip here, a tip there, or listen to a speaker, and maybe you get a few tips.
You need a plan.
When your pilot is doing the pre-flight check, they're using a checklist. They're not randomly walking around saying, "Well, that looks bad."
I've been trying to tell my guys at work that, they're really good at making up training guides for users. But then when it comes to like, hey, is there a how-to to do this thing that I need to do for my job? They're like, no, you just figure it out. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Preventative safety is about being organized and knowing what to do.
And a checklist. Yes.
Checklist. So our system, it's 3 different components. We want parents to think about 3 components when we're talking about safety from a lot of these dangers. It's the conversations that you need to have. So you need to make your children aware of the danger, because a lot of these aren't clear and we don't know about a lot of the, particularly the new dangers. Make them aware and instill the correct principles and values. So when the danger comes along, they know how to safely respond to it. So conversations is 1. Social media safety rules, the rules you set that you want your children to follow in all aspects of social media when they're using it. So we have a template for those rules. And then settings, the settings that you set on your operating system and your device. So privacy settings, filters, and time limits, which serve as really effective guardrails for parents for healthy amount of time that our children should be on social media, which then means that the parents don't have to sit there and monitor it and get involved. It automatically shuts off.
Oh, that's nice.
So those 3 components together are what parents need to be thinking about when they hand over the keys to social media to their kids.
And you also mentioned something about software side too. So is there like an installable app for a phone or a browser app, or what are you doing on the software side?
So, well, there's a few different pieces of that. So when we talk about calibrating the settings in terms of buckling the social media seatbelt, that means, if you're on iOS, the Apple software, you're using screen time, you're using their filter. If you're on Android, you're using well-being for your kids, which is the built-in operating software. Now, there are third-party safety apps out there that
like
parents can use. Kind of like the Net
Nanny from way back?
Exactly. Net Nanny, Custodio, Norton. We tend to endorse and support, again, with no financial arrangement because we're a consumer protection organization, but we endorse Bark and recommend Bark to parents.
Is that B-A-R-K? Or
B-A-R-K, like the dog sound.
Right.
So what they do is you put the software on your phone and your child's devices, and then it will monitor in the background what your child is doing on social media and send and use artificial intelligence algorithm to send you alerts if something send the parent alerts if something problematic is happening.
Okay.
So it maintains.
And that could be like a little bit too long on the screen, or it could be something else.
They have a time limit thing, but the alerts are more for if your child gets or sends a nude pic or is being cyberbullied and someone says something to them that would indicate cyberbullying, self-harm. I'm going to hurt myself or something like that, and you'll get you'll get a flash on your phone.
Wow.
Saying that problematic content has been found. So, and then the parents can intervene. It also is a really good deterrent tool for parents as well, because the children know that it's on their phone. So you're really not invading privacy there.
Right.
So yeah, that's software we recommend. In terms of our own capabilities, we consult on that. We work with those companies. Provide our expertise when we can, and so that is a big part of making this whole environment safer.
So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the dangers, and maybe like you can sort of like figure out like some of the percentage wise the most important in your mind anyway. I know they're all important. I mean, but like, is cyberbullying like your number one danger, or is it violence, human trafficking, addiction? What are these? How do they rack and stack, or do you not do that?
There's
danger's a danger. I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
There's complexity there, because we would say, and when Ed teaches this too, there are dangers that are common. So cyberbullying is common. It is experienced by about 40% of students,
Wow.
6th grade and up. And it's witnessed by about 80% to 90% of students, which is really the sum total of children that are on social media are going to witness cyberbullying. So that's a common danger. There are dangers that are less common, like human trafficking, but obviously that's a worst case scenario with a very severe impact and outcome on the victim. So yeah, when we talk about that, we'll talk about it in terms of how common it is, but the severity, the outcomes of a lot of these are equally severe. Cyberbullying, you have 20% of students that are cyberbullied will contemplate suicide, 10% will attempt it and take action. So very high stakes there as well.
Right.
So we don't really distinguish in terms of severity, but we do in terms of commonality.
How common? Yeah.
Now, when we talk about propaganda and misinformation, that's a danger that we consider an existential threat to us all. So that should be of concern to everyone.
Everybody. You don't even have to have kids.
Right.
So have you guys, how much time have you spent thinking about things like, what is it, QAnon? Is that, I know, you have to laugh, but it's not funny.
Exactly. I'm hoping QAnon's on the fade here, fading out, but the danger is not. So we spend a lot of time thinking about that. We have helped legislate in California to prevent the use of deepfake technology, and that's this new technology where anyone can take your likeness and put it into a video, stick it on someone else that you have nothing to do with. And so in part,
and it looks like you and it talks like you.
Looks like you, talks like you, have nothing to do with. So clearly it can be used to interfere in elections. So we help legislate in California to deter that. We're also working to prevent the use of deepfakes, their likenesses, and put them into pornography. So we are trying to criminalize that. But yeah, in terms of propaganda and election interference, it's something that we think about continually.
Have you spent any time looking into, and Ed, you can chime in on this too, it's a question, but I noticed that like a lot of people in my family back in Michigan were sounding like they may have been Q affected. And so that's kind of like was my intro to what the hell is going on. I had heard about it, like on the news, right? And I was like, okay, I don't know what that is. So, and then when I heard family members say things that were, crazy, I started looking into it. And I saw a very long post about have you ever heard of an ARG? You familiar with that term?
No.
Alternative reality game.
Okay.
Okay, so Mark, have you ever heard of an ARG? You kind of
Yeah, I mean, gaming's a piece of what we cover to the extent that it fits in our definition of social media. So it's the extent that there's chat or public interaction. So ARG, virtual reality, these are some of the things that we're exploring as they're going to come into popularity.
So like an ARG is like this, for those who don't know and aren't familiar, the idea is that QAnon, the movement, whatever the hell it is, I don't even know what to call it, but the interference is being set up like an ARG. Okay, and you can Google this, is QAnon an ARG? And so basically an ARG was set up as like a marketing tool for a legitimate business to promote a thing, like a movie or a game launch, okay? And it's about like, it uses all of the things that you see in QAnon, like these live drops and these websites, and they're all, everything in it at some point, the participants of the game in a legitimate ARG are made aware relatively early on in the promotion that it is a game, right? Okay. And you still play because it's amazingly fun. And then at the end, you buy a game or you watch a movie. Okay. But the thing is it's really, really fun and addictive, right? So the evil masters that are running QAnon, they're very smart. This, I guess, is my whole point of bringing this up. Yeah. Yeah. And I was sucked in and I knew it was fake and I didn't want it to be fake.
But you get sucked in.
You get sucked in. Yeah. And so when we moved to Vegas, there was this game that I was playing on the computer and they were just doing a free update and they did an ARG to promote the update. Right. And I was running around taking pictures of like bells, because they make, it's a blast. So I am sympathetic to all QAnon affected people because I'd been there. I wasn't in Q, right? and I knew it was fake, but I understand it because I went through it. I just wanted to get that out there.
Look, it's a similar dynamic. And again, this is why we can cover all these dangers, this social media dynamic of this, the addictiveness,
the addiction,
what's called the silo effect. So how it bends your concept of reality distortion. It runs through a gamut of different dangers. So eating disorders is actually fairly similar dynamic here where you get sucked. Okay. So, I mean, to the extent that they're being exacerbated or caused by social media, it's getting sucked into this world where, you're in this thinspiration hashtag on Instagram and some of the other platforms, and you're surrounding yourself with people that are giving social legitimacy to dangerous dieting and exercise behaviors. And that's your, that's 6-7 hours a day. And
now
it becomes
you just gave me something more to be afraid of. Thanks, Mark.
We could go for hours.
I bet. So when you said silo, that was sort of like, it feels like you're in an echo chamber, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like you are. It's like no outside information can change your mind, right?
It's an easy thing to say and for someone to visualize, but I think it's hard to understand how powerful that
especially
effect is.
When you're outside of it.
Yes. And so average teen use for this stuff, forget about adults, average teen use, we're finding 3 to 4 hours pre-pandemic. God knows what it is now, 9 hours on average on devices. So if you are siloed and you're in this world 6-7 hours a day,
that's what reality becomes.
That is your reality, no matter how crazy it actually is.
Go ahead.
Or dangerous.
Yeah.
No, and Mark always talks about that. You're in this group of like-minded individuals.
Right. And they're all reinforcing the crazy. Yes. Yep. Constantly.
That's the problem.
So I want to ask a question of how do I get my family member unbrainwashed from Q? I need help. So maybe I'm going to start like putting your bookmarks on my Facebook and that's it. I can't think of anything else to do. When I try to talk to her and explain to her what's going on, it's like hitting a wall, right? Right. Yeah. I haven't talked to my brother about it, but I tried talking to my sister, and it didn't work. And she's older than me. She's 6 years older than me. So it can happen to anybody.
That's a virtual cult, and pulling people out of cults is a very involved process.
Wow. Yes. Wow. Okay.
It's difficult once you are in that world. It's difficult to get out of it. Obviously, we would recommend taking a break from social media, because that's how this stuff is being propagated through social media. There's really no other outlet to it. You'll see QAnon reported in the news a bit, but obviously it's not the information. That's not the information that's pulling people in. So, limiting social media, but
and like taking down whatever that site was that was in Henderson here, that doesn't really do much. It's a step. I can't remember the name of the site, but it was actually here in Henderson, Nevada. The company that was hosting a lot of the Q stuff, they got shut down by the government. Yeah.
It's horrifically complex in terms of combating, because again,
complex. Yes.
It's free speech. And so people have a right to share this information to the extent that they're not violating existing law or committing a tort. But it's really, really a challenge and a major danger.
Wow. On the calendar. That's okay. We're all busy and we're living in a virtual world. Don't worry about it. So
that is Alexa. Sorry.
It's all good.
She is listening to us.
That's, Alexa is giving me most of my traffic. So hey, everybody, you can say, hey, Alexa, play Vroom Vroom Veer. And if she's listening, a show will start. And that's where I'm getting most of my stuff. Amazing. I know. So let's talk a little bit about some more of these dangers. So I know we talked about cyberbullying, and we're getting close to wrapping up here. So you have 10 minutes. Okay. Yes. And we'll wrap it up in 5. How's that sound?
It's trying to be silent and sneaky there.
It's all good. It's my show, so I can do anything I want.
There we
go. So we talked about addiction. We talked about human trafficking. I could go on for that forever. So how much of election interference are you guys actually seeing? And is that foreign actors or domestic actors or just corporate actors? I guess it could be anybody, really.
We're not in the heat of an election now. There's been some, and we're kind of limited on that to anecdotal reports and case reports. There's been a few cases here and there of local races having some issues, which is mostly domestic actors and lone wolves interfering. Okay. During the presidential election, there obviously is substantial documented evidence that there are both foreign and domestic actors involved in circulating. Okay. So we would expect in the future, and we do understand the challenges that platforms are facing and how to confront that. It again is horrifically complex to them. So we have a few proposals that we will be coming out with over the next year or two to help get a handle on this.
Wow. Well, you guys really have taken on a big job that needs doing, but thank you. I mean, I'm pretty sure you don't hear that enough, but thanks. I mean, it's almost like I willed you into existence. That sounds weird, but in my world, it makes sense. There needs to be about 150 or 100, maybe 1,000 more organizations for social media safety. More. We need more. So talk a little bit about how people can, interact and get in touch and get safe on social media.
Absolutely. Well, we think the one can do it, but we need the support of everyone out there.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, we
just use you.
we are. I mean, we're built to be, to succeed here. That's why we formed this. We're built to make social media safe in the long term. But we need, the support of your listeners. We need the support. We receive global support and we need it, and every bit helps, both in terms of financially and also in terms of using our resources and sharing those resources and bringing ed into schools. Who's once the pandemic ends here or is at a safe point, he will continue his perpetual tour of the worst hotels in the country.
Sorry, Ed.
Right?
Yeah.
So is there a donation link somewhere that people can donate? Okay.
So if you go to our website, ofsms.org, you will see a donation link where you can contribute.
I will link to that in the show notes.
This seems like a big problem, but I will tell you that every bit matters, and our support comes in small $25, $50 donations.
Right.
And so it really helps us do this work. Yes. It helps us expand out. Ed goes to Title I schools, which is low resource schools that couldn't otherwise afford our services. It helps us create and continue to do this educational work and the advocacy work. And you can find our list of school services there
and your checklist for social media safety, the plan.
Yes, you will find our course will be a little annoying pop-up, I know, but it helps people find it. So there'll be a pop-up when you go to the course.
It's okay. It's a good annoyance.
With the course, it's free. We're not selling it.
It's weird because you're using the thing you're working against. So I get it. It's
yeah, exactly. We use social media. We're not going to say that there's nothing beneficial about social media. There is. We use it.
Right.
And we use the internet and we use these tools.
Right.
So,
you're working against the dangers.
Exactly. We're trying to make it exactly. So
simple.
Yeah, that information is there. We certainly appreciate anyone that would like to get involved and help out. And as you mentioned, this is a big issue that affects really all of us across all demographics.
Perfect. Ed, thank you. Sorry you have to stay in crappy hotels.
No problem. I don't mind.
It helps the image, I guess.
I don't mind. I don't mind at all.
We don't want you staying at the Ritz. That wouldn't look right. You can go up maybe Best Western level. I think that's fine.
I'm good with Motel 8. I'm good.
You're good with the Motel 6 or Motel 8, whatever it takes.
Yep, whatever it is.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you for having us, Jeff.
And I appreciate you guys doing this work. It's very much needed. So keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Take care, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.